So we're going to look at the Salter-Harris classification, which is a system used to describe fractures that involve the growth plate in children and teenagers. The growth plate, also known as physis, is the area of growing tissue near the ends of long bones. Now, injuries to these areas are important because they can affect the way the bone grows. Now, the classification system is broken down into 5 types, each describing a different kind of fracture involving the growth plate. Now, to keep it simple, type 1 is when the fracture goes through the growth plate but doesn't affect the bone on either side. Now, this usually heals well because the growth plate remains intact. So an example, a child's wrist gets twisted and the growth plate shifts slightly but no bone breaks. Then you have type 2. So the fracture goes through the growth plate and into the bone on the shaft side, so the longer part of the bone. Now, this is the most common type of growth plate fracture, and it usually heals without problems. As an example, a fall that causes a crack through the growth plate and into the long part of the bone, like in a broken arm. Then you have type 3. So the fracture goes through the growth plate and into the bone on the joint side, so the end part of the bone that forms a joint. Now, this type can be more serious because it affects the joint surface and may require surgery to ensure proper healing. An example of this is an ankle injury where the crack runs through the growth plate and into the joint. Then we have a type 4. This is when the fracture goes through the growth plate, the shaft of the bone and the joint side, so both sides of the growth plate are affected. Now, this type often requires surgery to make sure the bone heals correctly and doesn't affect future growth. An example of this is a more severe injury where both long part of the bone and the joint surface are fractured. And then we have type 5. So this is the growth plate is crushed or compressed by the injury. This is the most serious type of growth plate injury and can permanently damage the growth plate, potentially leading to growth problems. An example of this is a heavy fall or blow that compresses the growth plate, like a severe ankle sprain or impact injury.